said, my name is Grammatico. I graduated from the Hippocrates Health Institute. Many of you may have heard of that in West Palm Beach. If you have not, basically it's an alternative medicine institute where hundreds of thousands of people come from all over the world to heal themselves naturally of sickness and disease. So 75% of the clientele there are sick and dying from stage 4 something. And so it's a raw vegan institute, but I teach on all diets and what diet is right for you, body and soul. So at the top is my website, Grammatico.com. And what we're talking about today is Tantra, and the reason I'm talking about communication is because there are several different ways that human beings communicate, and almost 70% of it is nonverbal. So when we, a lot of you have been to Lourdes' workshops before, when we do soul gazing, things like that, all of that's nonverbal. The majority of the stuff you do is nonverbal. And so the 5 Love Languages, which is a book by Gary Chapman, touches on how we all interpret and how we all communicate giving and receiving love. And there's different ways. So we're going to talk about that today. So first off, it says communication. It's a noun. It's the imparting or exchanging of information or news. It's also the means of connection between people or places. Communing, community, communication. So it's how the two of us or a group of people or entire community, entire world communicates with each other. Exchanges information with each other. So since the story of Babel, many have heard of that in the book of Genesis, where they were building a tower up to God. God confounded their speech, and then all of a sudden every single person spoke a different language, and they were all scattered out about the world. So this goes back all the way to the days of Genesis as far as different languages are concerned. There were confusion of tongues, variations in human language, and today, on estimate, there's over 6,500 different languages in the world. 6,500. And this is an aside, but I just learned this today. Mandarin Chinese is the mostly used by 1.23 million people.
Billion people.
1.3 billion, thank you. Yeah, million would be nothing. Thank you. So that's the differences we have just in tongues in our world. 6,500 different languages. Then you have the left and right brain of a human being. The left brain, as many of you know, is analytical, it's logical, it deals with math, it deals with numbers, it deals with language, reasoning, science, written words, skills, right hand control. It also houses the ego, which I don't know if any of you know this, but it's on the left side of the hemisphere of the brain, and it is the size of a peanut, and yet it has so much control over us sometimes, doesn't it? The size of a peanut. I posted it to our event page tonight, so that when I told you about the story of Jill Bolte Taylor, which is also in your handout, and I gave you the website to go to. Jill Bolte Taylor is a neurophysicist or neuroanalyst at Harvard University. And her story is incredible, and she's got a YouTube video which I posted, and the link is here. When she was 36 years old, I believe, she had a stroke and stayed conscious through the whole thing. She lost her left brain, her left hemisphere of the brain completely, and she was only in her right brain, yet still conscious. And her story is absolutely amazing on the 2 different parts of the brain. It's only 27 minutes long, miraculous, and she talks a lot about that little ego on the left side of the brain that's the size of a peanut and how it affects us. And the reason I bring that up is because the ego is designed to protect us. Much like a security guard or a police officer outside of your home. They cannot enter your home without your permission unless they have reason to believe you are in danger or harm. Then they can say, please open up and break down the door and come in by law. So our ego was designed to protect us. It remembers everything that we do. So when you first burned your hand on that stove when you were 5, it reminds you like a rear view mirror. Oh, you're near a stove again. You're getting a flashback. Stove. Remember that time? Don't touch it. It's hot. So it has a reason. It was designed by God to protect us so that we remember. Otherwise, we'd be like Groundhog's Day or that 51st State movie where we're doing the same thing over and over again and burning ourselves or sticking our hand in a blender. We have to know that. It's there for a reason. The only thing is we have to understand that the ego, which I want to really imprint on you, is the size of a peanut. We can keep that in context here. It's only giving you information based on what you've experienced in this life. It's not your soul that came with infinite wisdom. It's not your inner knowing. It's nothing on the right side that we're going to talk about in a moment. It's solely information and data that's collected in this life. And not all of it that's we've collected in this life has been correct, has it? And it could be somebody else's data that they just said over and over and over to us that we never even experienced for ourselves. So we have to keep that in check, that that ego is only that rear view mirror telling us this looks like and sounds like what happened before, so be careful because this could happen. Doesn't that happen all the time in relationships?
All the time.
When she said, you meet a wonderful guy, and what comes up? Well, the last wonderful guy you thought you met, or dad, or because you're opening your heart again where you left it last. And that's what's still there unless you healed it properly. So that's what's going to come up. And then hopefully, when you are with a good man who is understanding and soul gazing and coming from his heart, you can work through that together and say, you know, I'm really feeling this right now, and because I'm this love language, I know how to ask that I just need to be held right now, or I just need you to tell me I did a good job, or so you know yourself well, you know your boundaries well, you know how to communicate well, you know how to give, you also know how to receive and ask for what you need in the moment that you need it, so that two people, two souls can come together when it appears like conflict, but it's truly an opportunity for both to evolve and enlighten and get closer together. Therefore, the family gets closer together. Therefore, the community gets closer together. Therefore, the whole planet starts bonding together in love. Because each one of us, in our own soul, starts that work. So, the right brain, art awareness, music, creativity, imagination. How many of us played by ourselves in the room with imaginary friends? Or maybe they weren't. Intuition, insight, 3D forms. It controls your left hand control. It also processes energy intake, how you perceive things through your 5 senses. Sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And our other senses as well, the 6th sense in our. So that's just your left brain and your right brain. That's just the basics of us being a physical being. Then add to that the 3 modes of perceiving and talking about one's experience through communication with you and the world, particularly when you're problem solving or a conflict comes up. And you can be one of 3 things. You have all 3, but you can dominate, or your primary is one of 3 things. You are auditory, which means you hear things first. You're visual, which means you see things first. Or you're kinesthetic, which means you just feel them energetically first. So women know that men are very visual, right? Try to interrupt a man in a football game or a soccer game, World Cup game, right? They're not hearing anything if they're watching that game. Plus, they're more tunnel vision because they have that masculine energy. But an auditory person is likely to say, "I hear you," or "that sounds right." A visual person is most likely to say, "I see you," or "that looks right." And a kinesthetic person is likely to say, "I've got it, that feels right." So that might give you a little insight into you, things that you respond like that. Each individual seems to be most comfortable in using 1 or 2 of the systems. Some people believe, and I am definitely one of them, that the more of these languages, the more of these perceptions, the more of these ways of perceiving that you can learn, it increases your ability to communicate with more people, and therefore the effectiveness of your community with everyone around you will improve dramatically. So there's 2 ways. Now the third, and this I do want you to look through as we go to, is on page 2, and that's called The 5 Love Languages, a book by Gary Chapman, which I told you about. I read this book 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, and I read it for the first time about 25 years ago.
I don't know, is it bright enough to read? Can you all?
It's fine.
It's fine.
Human beings are created to give and receive love. We know that. We are born for that. If we're not doing that, we feel stifled. We are all here looking for the same thing. Something to do and someone to love. There are 5 ways to express and experience this love. We can relate to all 5. We have all 5, most definitely, but we usually dominate as one or have a primary language of one. Sometimes we can tie in 2. And a common question is, can I change over my lifetime? You can change over your lifetime. And it could depend on how you were raised, and it can depend on the partner that you're with. Sometimes somebody else's language will be attractive to you because if you were not physical touch and he is physical touch, but it became attractive over time, you might now crave that physical touch. So true love is not a myth, but it does take work. Making sure that the one you love feels love requires commitment, understanding, and effective communication. According to this work, understanding your love language, so understanding your own, first and foremost, and then understanding that of the ones you love, your beloved, your family, your coworkers, your neighbors, your community, is a way to breathe life into all your efforts in your relationships. This key helps maintain a successful relationship where love can last. So these are the 5 love languages, and these are the attributes to each. So words of affirmation, number 1. Quality time, number 2. Giving and receiving gifts, number 3. Acts of service, number 4. And physical touch, number 5. Now you might resonate immediately when I say something, and you might think, oh, I know who I am. I know who I am. Normally, when you think about what you give to somebody else, when you want to show somebody that you care about, them, normally we give them our language because it's our native tongue. It's our unwritten native tongue. So we might automatically, if we're a physical touch person, go up to somebody and just the first thing we do is give them a hug. Or we might speak to them and say, you're awesome. That would be words of affirmation. We might want to do something for them. We feel helpless. We don't know what to say, and we're not necessarily a touch person, but we do something for them. We bake them food when somebody loses a family member, or we want to do something. Take the garbage out. That's acts of service. So we're going to go through each one. Words of affirmation. This means that their communication is compliments, affirmations, and kind words. The action would be send notes or cards. And what to avoid is criticism. So I am a words of affirmation girl. I actually tie in words of affirmation and physical touch, 50-50. So the thing is, you rarely attract a partner who is the exact same language as you. Why? That would make life too easy. We're souls that came to evolve, right? We like to be stretched. We like to be evolved. We like to be enlightened. So it's rare, it's not completely rare, but it's rare that you'll choose somebody just like you. And it's almost completely rare that you'll have all your needs met when you're born into your family. So my mom and dad are both acts of service. I didn't read this book till I was 22. I would have loved to have read the book when I was 2. Because I am quality time, I am physical touch and words of affirmation. So hug me and tell me I did a great job. Neither one of my parents speak. Just kidding, they speak. But they're not words of affirmation, but they do. And so I know now, after I read this book, 22 and at 24 and then again at 30, I'm like, oh, they do love me. I would have loved that memo when I was younger. I'm glad I got it eventually, but I understand now. And I remember having arguments with my father. Why can't you just do this? Why can't you just believe in me? Why can't you just say I did a good job? Instead of, what are you talking about? I've worked 3 jobs for you. I put you through college. I bought you this and I bought... That's his idea. That's his language. Where I was saying, I'd give it all up if you just showed up to one thing that I did and said you did a great job. So it's really important to know somebody's language so that they don't get the wrong message. Or worse yet, do something that would be really harmful to them. The worst thing you can do to a child whose words of affirmation is criticize. Or the worst thing you could do to a child whose physical touch is hit. So you also want to know what not to do, things to avoid, and what to do for the person you love and the children. If you're in management, definitely your coworkers and your employees, things like that. Quality time is the second one. This is somebody who just wants to be with you and doing something together. They like your attention, one-on-one time. I think you said your daughter was this, right? One of them? One-on-one time, not interrupting, face-to-face conversation. The action you could take is take long walks together, do things together, take trips together. They like to experience things with you. And you know what? While we're doing these, if anybody wants to like raise their hand, like I resonate with that or anything like that, or you want to pop in and say anything, feel free. Or you have a question, feel free. What to avoid with quality time people are long periods of being apart without any sort of interaction. More time with friends than your partner. That would tell them that you're not interested in spending quality time with them. Giving and receiving gifts. The communication is positive, fact-oriented information. The action would be give gifts on special occasions and also for no apparent reason. And it doesn't have to be, you know, from Tiffany's or from Cartier. My best friend in Michigan is a giving and receiving girl. The reason you know this is because since we were 15, it's 2 months to my birthday, it's 29 days to my birthday, 28 days to my birthday, 27 days to my birthday. So you know the gifts are important to her, but it doesn't matter what you buy. You could literally make her a handmade card on a loose leaf paper, and she'd be thrilled if you just took the time to do it. And she'd hang it on a refrigerator. You know, just a lot of children like that. So give gifts, and then the thing not to do, forget special days. Never do that for a receiving gifts person. Acts of service is the fourth one. Action words like I can and I will. What else can I do? The action word with them is helping with house and yard work chores, repair, maintenance, act of kindness. The thing not to do is ignoring your partner's requests while helping others. And physical touch. A lot of nonverbal. Verbal needs to be word pictures. Action would be touches, hugs, pats, kisses. And what to avoid? Physical neglect or abuse. Physical touch people just like to be around you and preferably touching you. So you could be watching a movie, she could be reading a book, you could be both reading different books. Just be on the couch, have one toe touching me, and you know, I'm okay. I have those moments, most definitely. You like to snuggle at night, and you know, if you're at a party, just come visit me every once in a while. Put your hand on the back of my lower back or whatever. You know, just touch me. Exactly. So, be fluent in all 5 of these languages, just like they're Italian, Spanish, French, Chinese. If you are speaking Italian and your girlfriend or boyfriend is speaking another language, how are you going to communicate with each other unless you learn their native tongue? They might understand a few words here and there of Spanish or French, but you really need to learn their language if you really want to have good, open communication with each other on a deep level. We can all say, you know, ¿Dónde está el baño? In Spanish, but we want to say, I love you to the depths of my heart. What can I do to you to make you feel safe? In what way can I make this relationship better? You got to know how to speak the language to be able to come up with that and translate it well to another person. That way, you can go from the chaos. Chaos happens when 2 people are speaking 2 different languages. You know what happens? Each one gets louder. Why do people get louder in an argument? Because they don't believe you're being heard, and they feel like you're getting more and more distant, even though you could be right here screaming at each other. You get louder because you're getting too far away from you. I got to get you closer to me. Listen to me. You're not hearing me. They're usually not saying that. They're usually saying something very not pretty. But that's what they're really saying. You don't hear me. You don't understand me. But you speak their language, they will definitely understand. and you learn somebody's language, and who would not be so touched if you went and learned their language and spoke to them in their language and vice versa. So you can buy the book, you can take the test online. I also do further teachings on this as far as the left brain and the right brain and the auditory and the kinesthetic and all that stuff. Know yourself well. Know yourself very well so that you know how to ask for what you need. And I know we went through this quickly and briefly as an overview. How many people have ever heard of the 5 love languages before tonight?
I have the book.
You do? Did you read the book?
Not all of it. I did more of the test.
That's fantastic. So you know what you
Somebody
are?
gave it to me.
Uh-huh. It's a great gift. It's a great wedding gift.
No, it was, yeah, ever since I read it, it made a lot of sense.
Right.
So, yeah.
What is your language?
Physical touch with quality time, I think.
Is a real close second or
Yeah.
almost a tie? So be doing something like road trip and touch you at the same time. So when you're in a car or on a vacation, hold his hand or touch his back at the same time. Ew! Why am I with him again? Now you gotta do something nice. Touch him. You gotta do 3 things nice. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna do a couple exercises with each other just to cement this home, just so you know what these languages are all about. So what we're gonna do is you can turn to the left and to the right, and you can turn this off for this.